Hello, this video is going to be on K3 multiplying polynomials. So this should be a review for most of you. Here we're going to find the product. Remember, product means to multiply, and then we're going to simplify our answer. So since here there's just one term times one term, we're going to first multiply the coefficients. So -2 times +6 would be -12. And then when you multiply the exponents, if they're the same variable, p and p, you can just add the exponents together when you're multiplying. So p to the 4th power times p to the 3rd power, it's really like 4 plus 3, which is 7. So this would be p to the 7th power. So the product of -2 p to the 4th power times 6 p to the 3rd power is -12 p to the 7th power. Power of 7. All right, let's jump to the next level. So here we're finding the product again, so we're still multiplying. But here we have a binomial multiplied by a binomial. So there's two ways to do it. You could use FOIL, which is distributing between these. I like to set it up using an area model so that I can keep everything straight. So what I'm thinking of this as is, if this has a side with a length of h minus 3, and if this has a length that's represented by 2h plus 2, if I multiply all the pieces together, and then I take the total, the sum of the parts, then that will be my answer. So 2h times h is 2h squared. -3 times positive 2h goes here, that's negative 6h. Right here is positive 2 times h, which would just be positive 2h. And this is positive 2 times -3, a negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times 3 is 6. Now, if you look at this, there are a couple of like terms because this is h squared, there's no other h squared. But here there is a negative 6h, and here's a positive 2h. So since those are both an h term, I can combine those. So -6 and positive 2 would make negative 4h, because the negative is bigger than the positive. 6 is bigger than 2. And the rest of this will just come down here. So 2h squared minus 4h, and then minus 6. That's as simple as I can get my answer. So that's how I would simplify my answer. 2h squared minus 4h minus 6. Okay, this is another one where we're multiplying two binomials. So let's jump to the next section. Okay, this one's a little different, so let's go ahead and do this one together. If you'll notice, this is just -g times everything that's in the parentheses. So what we're really doing is we're just kind of distributing -g times each of these three terms. So -g times 4g squared, -g times -3g, and then -g times positive 2. So let's do the first term. -g times 4g squared would be -4g to the 3rd power. The second term would be negative times a negative is a positive. And then there's no coefficients, this is just positive 3. But g times g is g squared. And then -g times positive 2 would be negative 2g. The biggest mistake on this is people always forget to distribute the negative sign. So if you think about it, a negative times a positive, this first term becomes negative. Negative times negative, the second term becomes positive. And a negative times a positive, this last term is negative. Since there's no like terms, this is our simplified answer. -4g cubed. I press the right arrow to make it go back down to the base from the exponent. Plus 3g squared. Right arrow. Minus 2g. Okay, as you can see, this one's a little bit more difficult. So here we have two terms 4g and positive 4 times 3 terms, 2g squared, positive 2g, positive 3. So let's go ahead and make an area model that's a little bit bigger so that there's space for all of our answers. So the one with 3 terms will go up here, 2g squared. Oh, let me write that again. Two g squared. Go ahead, you can try this one with me on paper. Plus 2g plus 3. And then what would go on this side? That's right, 4g plus 4. Now in each of these boxes, we're going to be multiplying the column and the row. So 4 times 2 is 8. G squared times g is g to the 3rd power. Here 2 times 4 is 8 again. This was a 3. And then g times g is g squared. And then here we have positive 3 times 4g, which would be positive 12g. Here we have positive 4 times 2g squared, which would be positive 8g squared. Here we have positive 4 times positive 2g, that's positive 8g. And positive 4 times positive 3, so positive 12. Now let's see if there's any terms that we can combine. Here we have g to the 3rd power, there's no other ones. Oh, but here we have g squared and g squared, so we can combine those. And then we also have some like terms here, 12g and 8g, so we can combine those. And there's only one constant value. So let's go ahead and write out what we have. We have 8g cubed. Then we have 8 plus 8, 16g squared. Then 8 plus 12, that's 20g. And then just 12 by itself. Right here. All right, so let's go ahead and write our answer in. 8g to the power of 3 plus 10g squared plus 20g plus 12. Oh, let's see what happens. What's the issue here? 8g cubed, got that, plus, oh, I wrote 10g here instead of 16g. So just be careful because what I did here was this said 16, but I read it as a 10. So just be careful when you add these up together. All right, let's go. So the math was correct. I just read my writing wrong because it's hard to write with this tool. This is a 16 right here. Let me just show that. Yeah, that's a 16. It was 8 plus 8. Okay, so let's jump to the highest level. All right, we did an example like this where we multiplied 2 binomials. Let's look at the challenge though. Okay, and so as you can see, this one's asking you to find the area, right? So it's the same thing when we find area. What we're really doing is we're still multiplying, right? So really what you're multiplying, you're just multiplying this value times this value. So let's think about this. 6 times x is 6x. And then 6 times negative 8 would be negative 48. So that's how we would represent the area, is by multiplying the binomials. So we would have 6x minus 48. 4 times 3x is 12x. And here, x plus 7 times x plus 5. Well, you could draw an area model with 4 parts, or at this point, maybe you're able to do it in your head, and you realize x times x is going to be x squared. You'll have 7 times x and 5 times x. When you combine those like terms, you'll get plus 12x. And then when you do 7 times 5, you'll get plus 35. So you want to get to a point where you can recognize patterns quickly so that you can multiply binomials without having to do all of those steps. X squared plus 12x plus 35.